Hey everyone, welcome to Empower Team Monday Night Call. I'm Natalie Dolan, Sapphire Brand Ambassador, and tonight we're going to be talking about all about growth, and Tova Privet's going to be bringing the house down with that. But really quick, I just wanted to announce that this Thursday we have we're switching it up a little bit for our Thursday, our every Thursday event. And this Thursday, we're doing a business focused event called the Business of Gut Health. The leaders on this team, me, Tova, Sabrina, Natalie, Kylie, and myself will be sharing our business stories. Why Plexus? Why now? So that's something that you want to start making a list of your business prospects, your newest customers, anybody who might need some extra money right now during these crazy inflation times. Couldn't think of a better time in history to do a business event. So make your list now and start and get ready to invite people to that event on Thursday evening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern per usual. So take it away, Tova.
All right. Yes, Thursday's going to be fun. All right, you guys, let's get going. So first of all, Star for being here. That's a growth mindset. We're going to kind of jump into the details of that term is thrown around so much. And we talk about doing personal growth and we talk about reading all the books. And sometimes it's like, all right, what are you actually talking about? What am I actually supposed to be doing? And so I want to get really practical what that looks like, and why it might feel vague is it does look slightly different for all of us. Now there's certain trends and behaviors that are associated with people who are in growth and people who are pursuing growth and in a growth mindset. But in practicality, what area I might need to grow in and what area Sabrina might need to grow in are definitely going to be, slightly different. So our individual path will be just that. It'll be individualized. So why does growth matter? And most of this is coming from the gospel according to Uncle John Maxwell, and Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins, successful people. And so if some of this sounds familiar, that's why. So he says growth is the gap between where you are and where you want to be. So it's literally the gap or the path or the bridge, whatever analogy makes sense to you. There aren't people who have reached super high successful kind of destinations without doing personal growth. So this is not Plexus. This is not network marketing. This is globally. You talk to these guys who head up Amazon, head up Apple, whatever. These guys have done a lot of personal growth because they know that's a rate limiting step. And though it can be scary and uncomfortable, guys, this is one thing that's totally within your control. And I kind of said that on a Jewel coaching call recently. I was like, I don't want to be the rate limiting step in my growth. If there's something that I can affect, then I want to get on it. And I kind of see personal growth as that. So the old saying of like, where you look is where you're going to go. Think about when you throw a ball, shoot a basketball, like wherever you're looking, or even especially riding a bike, you tell your kids, wherever you're looking, you're going to go. And sometimes you can just be like 10% off, just a little bit off, and you're focusing your business, and it can make all the difference. And I found myself doing this before I kind of knew better. So hopefully after this call, you'll know better. So you can actually get focused too much on goals and not growth. And so goals is an end destination. And yes, I'm not saying don't have goals, but I'm saying where your focus is and where you're pouring your energy in. If you get obsessed with the goal and you're not saving energy and pouring energy into your growth, you're never going to reach your goal. You may occasionally reach some of your goals, but it's not going to be at the speed you want and at the level you want. When you focus on growth, your goal is inevitable. All right. So your goal will happen, guaranteed, if you focus on growth. So that's really, and you see how close that is? Like it's just a tiny, tiny pivot that you have to be intentional about. And that's really, if you take anything away from this call, I would say take that word away, intentionality. Because this is not something that is intuitive to be intentional about unless we sit here and talk about it, which we're doing right now. All right. And one thing I want you to keep in mind with growth And I'll reference it in a few ways. But guys, there's no such thing as sitting still. You're either, Tony Robbins will say, like, you're growing or dying. That's kind of extreme. You're growing or retracting. You're not holding steady, you know, doing good, keep on keeping on. No, you're either growing or retracting. And so the lack of pursuing growth is a retraction in and of itself. It's like the whole thing, not making a decision is a decision. So keep that in mind, that you don't want to kind of be passive with this and then be shrinking and not really realize it until it's too late. So we kind of talked about why growth is important. Hopefully you believe me on that by now. What is growth? So it's unfulfilled potential. Think back to like physics, high school, like potential energy. All right. So this is ingredients that are inside you. This is how God made you. We need to tap into those. They're not going to naturally all manifest. And that's okay. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. We need to hone ourselves. It's like learning to play the violin. Some people are born with that talent. That doesn't mean they don't have to practice for hundreds and hundreds of hours. So we're kind of doing that. We need to find your potential and tap into it and fine tune it and bring it out, the very best version of yourself. Please view this, we say this is a marathon, not a sprint, all those things. Please view this as a journey, a lifelong pursuit. This is not a destination. If you ever like, I've done personal growth, I've grown, I've become a leader. Like there's no such thing. Like that in and of itself would speak volumes of like your small mindset. Growth, the more you learn, the more you grow, the more you're like, oh, I have a lot left to do. And that's okay. It becomes like a thirst, an insatiable thirst, and you'll get better and better at it, and you'll want to do it more and more. So I'd say that's red flag number one. If you want to make a little column on the right, separate from what I'm doing, like things to think about that are red flags, that this might be a problem for me, and then good things that like I want to see more of, or some you might already see. If you find growth books, if you find the talk kind of boring, if you find those books kind of boring, you're not really excited about them, that's a red flag that this is an area you need to work on. Don't feel bad about that. Don't feel guilty about it. Like that's just a red flag, a symptom that, hey, we probably need to do some work on your growth. Go ahead and prepare yourself to feel uncomfortable. Let's define what uncomfortable means. I can define what it means for me. It's going to be a little different for you, but I know when I need to grow on something because my initial visceral reaction is defensiveness. As soon as I want to explain, oh no, this is why I did that, or I think that was fine to do because of X, Y, and Z, as soon as that dialogue starts running through my head, I know that's a red flag to be like, oh, hold up, you need to take a step back and analyze this situation. Because it's an emotional shield. That's all that is your brain wants to stay with what's familiar. Your brain doesn't know what's right or wrong, and it doesn't care. It just wants to stay with what's familiar. So the way to get you back to familiar is to make you feel uncomfortable, make you feel defensive, make you get defensive. So if you find yourself explaining, that's another flag, or feeling defensive or feeling attacked, I promise 99% of the time, your leader, your coach is not attacking you. Like that doesn't benefit us, guys. We want to grow you. We want to grow us. We don't want to make you feel bad about yourself or your business. But there will be things naturally that you have to grow in. You'd already be a diamond if you didn't have to grow in anything. So that's okay. And if you can learn to embrace growth and kind of retrain your brain to not be uncomfortable, this becomes fun. All right, that's my first page. I have my little notes back up here. 1 second. All right, so we said what's important, what's not important, what it looks like. So what it looks like, we'll get to the nitty gritty of in a second, but I want to highlight what it does not look like first. So there's kind of two parts to this. Another common problem people do, somebody asked John Maxwell, what is your personal growth plan? And when he was younger, like 30 years ago, and he started rattling off all this list of things. And it was how hard he works. It was all the things he's accomplished. It's the goals that he's striving for. He started saying all these things, and the guy was like, that's nice. None of those are a growth plan. You just went over a bunch of activities. So again, this is like 5 degrees off where you need to be. Activity is important. To be in action is important. That's not what growth is. That's not what we're talking about. It's not busyness. And so we really need to make sure we're being intentional and not just saying we're growing when we're actually just being busy. Again, I'm not dismissing, everything has its part. And today we're talking about growth. So you really need to make sure you're addressing each bucket separately. And this is an important one. So these are common misconceptions that slow people down from growing. So it's a slight tangent, but I definitely think it's worth talking about, because these are kind of the 8 most common reasons people don't get into growth. So what are the most common misconceptions, pitfalls? Number 1, you assume you will grow automatically. By osmosis, maybe. Being in these meetings is a great awareness tool, but these meetings are not going to, in essence, help you grow. It can show you awareness about why it's important and what you need to do, but you got to take the initiative to do it. So if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, that kind of thing, you must make a plan. If you don't know what that means or looks like, that's fine. Get with your upline. We absolutely know what that looks like, and we'll make a plan for you. I mean, it's not going to look like my growth plan. It'll look different. Number 2, I don't know how. Okay, like totally not a reason. All right. Now that can intimidate people into kind of being frozen and just getting busy and doing a lot of other things. Okay, I've definitely been guilty of that before, leaning towards the things I'm good at and that make me feel good, and my strengths, things I'm comfortable in, which are all important and good, but you can't put growth on the back burner. We know lots of people who can help you grow. We know lots of books and podcasts, seminars, everything. We have more than you'll ever want to know about that. Now, number 3, now is not the right time. So this can be cloaked in lots of things. I'm busy with my other job. I'm busy with a deployment. I'm busy with the kids. I felt really sick lately. Like, of course, we have life things come up, but do you start seeing a trend? I mean, y'all, personal growth, I think, is actually one of the easier things to keep going in the busyness of your life. I have it going when I'm driving. I have it going when I'm fixing my hair or makeup, when I'm doing the laundry, like life necessities. So if you just start that habit, there really shouldn't be a time when you can't just have that going on in the background. All right, number 4, I'm afraid of making mistakes or messing it up. So Brandi Howard always says this. She's like, I can guarantee above all else, you will make mistakes. You will mess it up. You will not have all the answers. That is the price of improvement. So prices of growing and prices of improvement are feeling uncomfortable and making mistakes. Okay, and being okay with those mistakes. And how do you become that way? How do you become not uncomfortable? How do you become okay with mistakes? You do them, guys. You subject yourself. How do you become good at jogging? You go out there and suck it. Like, it burns, it hurts, you want to die. You just keep doing it. And every day it gets like a little less sucky. And you notice with running, if you stop and then have to come back, it sucks again. So don't do that, right? Just commit to it a little bit every day. And atomic habits that we're going to get into soon. I'll talk about that. All right, number 5, I have to find the best way to grow for me. So the group of people who are like, yes, I understand growth is important. Yes, I understand what it is. I understand I'm supposed to do it. Okay, I'm going to go and like research and think about and write spreadsheets about how I'm going to do personal growth. Again, I'm guilty of this. This is the perfectionist mindset. Start. You have to start. If you wait for the perfect time and the perfect method, you will never start. Like having kids, there's never just the right time for it. You must start. And we can start you on the kind of, glass of water growing books instead of fire hose growing books. There's a lot of different types of books out there. And there's no shame in audiobooks, okay? Those are books. Don't let somebody tell you that they're not. And I usually have like 2 audiobooks going and 2 paper books going. So you'll learn to develop that. I wasn't always that way. I mean, I feel like with your Plexus membership, Audible should come. It should like be a requirement. All right, number 6, we have 3 more. I don't feel like it. That doesn't sound fun. I kind of said this as a red flag. If none of this sounds appealing, none of this sounds interesting, none of this sounds engaging, like that means you're just kind of desensitized to it. And we really haven't gotten down and connected with you on why it's so important. And that's okay. It's, some people it clicks with quicker, but we should have a conversation with you later one-on-one that like, yeah, just no matter what I try to do, I don't want to do this. And there's something to be said for action. John Maxwell says motivation will follow action. And that's true. And Natalie always has said that to me, like when in doubt, act, do, move. And Mel Robbins says this, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, commit to doing something for 5 minutes. Commit to reading for 5 minutes, all right? Like most of the time, your brain, once it gets going for 5 minutes, will continue to do more. And if you didn't, then you kept your promise to yourself to do a little bit. So it's win-win either way. So kind of like we say again to our kids, like, I don't really care if you feel like it, do it anyway. It's the right thing to do. Number 7, other people are better at this than me. Like, of course, I would hope, like, let's just use me. I hope I'm better at personal growth after 4 years of trying to do it than somebody who's just starting to do it. And there might be, Shauna's a great example. She's been doing personal growth for years before she got into Plexus. So in some areas, she's probably better at it than me. Don't compare your chapter 3 to somebody's 13 to somebody's 27. And just because, and by the way, those chapters may or may not have anything to do with how long you've been at Plexus. You have no idea what somebody went through for 10 years at their other jobs, their marriages, with their kids, their personal struggles. You have no idea, and it's really none of your business. And so they've grown through that, and that's put them at this perfect place at this time. Same with your story. So looking right to left is literally comparing apples to oranges. I mean, it still wouldn't be right if you were comparing apples to apples, but you're not, because you're coming from different perspectives. So really that comparison thing's important for all areas, but growth too. And expectations is the last one. I thought this would be easier. That's okay. A lot of parts of Plexus I thought would be easier. That doesn't mean you don't have to do it. You just have to kind of have a little whiplash sometimes and then adjust that, man, this isn't as easy as I thought. And Sabrina and I had this conversation recently. She's like, man, so-and-so is hard. Like, this is hard. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And I mean, when you get into it, you figure it out and you talk to the people who've already gone through it and learn from them, right? Jim Rohn says you can't change your destiny overnight, but you can change your direction overnight, all right? So that's the thing I said when we started, that this is kind of cool because like if you see, man, I'm lacking in this area, I haven't really made this a priority, I haven't pursued this, like we can fix that. Like there's a lot of things that are hard to fix. This isn't one of them. We can get you into action. All right, let's dig in for the last few minutes into what does growth actually look like. First of all, I promise you have time. I promise you have time. I promise. I know y'all do your laundry. I know you drive your cars. I know you walk to the grocery store. Like you have time. You got to get more creative with finding it. All right. I'm not saying to give up music. People say give up TV, and I'm always like, I have a few shows that I like to watch, but like I don't listen to music much anymore. I always have something playing, and I mean we'll chat with the kids sometimes in the car, and sometimes they drive me crazy, and I'll just put my earbuds in and I'll listen to some personal growth. That's okay to do. It's a exactly. You find it a way and a time when it's a priority. All right, so there's kind of 5 main things I want to go over for what it'll look like. Books, 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 and more books. Books. Don't tell me I'm not a reader. Like if you want to be a successful business owner, you have to become a reader. It is okay if you're not a reader, but the amount of knowledge you need to gain and input, a bunch of successful people, like big CEOs, I've heard them all say they took speed reading classes. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but that is the intensity. That is the importance of there is so much knowledge they need to input so fast, and really the only way you can only listen to so many books at once and read so many books at once, they have to speed it up. And so they take speed reading classes. I play all my audiobooks on like 1.25 to go through a little bit faster. The point is you cannot afford to not read these books. You will be left way behind. So if that's a struggle for you, again, reach out, ask for help. Like I promise, get creative, Google, like, how do I become a reader? I'm not a reader. Like I promise someone has made a YouTube video about it. There's other people in Plexus who hated reading. And really a lot of people, some people have trouble with retaining and they lean on Audible. You might have to read the books 2 or 3 times. I tell you, that's one of the best things I've ever done is reread my John Maxwell books 2 or 3 times. So it's not like there's something wrong with you. Okay, number 2, you need to go to training. So props, again, that you're right here coming to training. That's a growth action. That's a growth mindset. So training, I think, is 2 things. It's a mindset that it is important, and it's the action of showing up, prioritizing your life to show up. Of course, we all know there's emergencies sometimes, but that needs to be a rare exception. If you don't prioritize training, what that indirectly says is, I'm good, I know it. That's what that says. If you realize it or not, that's what that says. That is not a growth mindset. To approach with a posture of, if it's convenient, I'll come. That means I'm not gaining that much from the training. I got it. So if that makes you uncomfortable, that's okay. We're getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. If that makes you feel defensive, right there, like, write it down. Like, we need to talk about that. That's probably a sore spot for you for a reason. And like, we're gonna go through this training and push on spots, and whichever one is like, ooh, that's your area to work on. Don't turn away from it. All right. Don't pivot away from feeling uncomfortable. Coaching. With coaching, again, multifaceted, coming with the posture of asking for help, seeking, like, I want to know my blind spots. I want you to like push those buttons. Like, what is the area? And a good coach is going to go over your strengths and your weaknesses with you. I mean, it's not going to be a 30-minute fest on like how bad you suck on things. That's not what I'm saying. But you can absolutely ask, like, what's the most important area you think I need to focus on growing in? Now, that answer might be something to do with IPA, but the point is the mindset you approach that meeting with coming to somebody with more experience than you, seeking to learn, a constant learning atmosphere. That's growth, right? Reflection. This is a big one for me that I don't think is taught enough. I don't think it's stressed enough. And I actually, with my percentage breakdown of all how much percent of spend on each activity, I added in a 5% line for reflection. So if I'm working 3 hours that day, however many minutes 5% is of 3 hours, like 10 minutes, I'm gonna sit down and reflect. And that means I'm away from all devices, and I have like a piece of paper, and I'm just gonna kind of sit and think about my business, and just think about what's going on with my business, not people on my team necessarily, or problems. And this is something, it's almost like meditation. It feels really weird. It's hard to get in the habit of, but you need to reflect on, like, what am I doing? Am I really analyzing these situations right? Am I really looking at my weaknesses? Am I really having a growth attitude? Or am I feeling really defensive about stuff? Number 5 is accountability. You need to tell someone, share what your growth plan is, ask for feedback on your growth plan, talk to people about, you should constantly, Sabrina is probably so annoyed with the amount of videos and books I send her. Like, it's because I'm watching those. I'm not like, Sabrina sucks, she needs to hear this. No, like, I'm like, oh, this is so good. And Natalie and I do it too. Check this out. I sent a video to them today that was so good, for a podcast. You will want to share these things, all right? And so there, I just referenced 2 of like my inner circle people, all right? They are constantly feeding me and pushing me to go higher, and I pray I'm doing the same to them. You need to really evaluate who do you talk to the most, and who do you spend the most energy with? Because you will move forward or back, if intentional or non-intentional. So if your inner circle doesn't have any prioritization for growth and learning, it is going to be almost impossible for you to pursue that by yourself. You become the average of the 5 people you're around, all right? A year from now, you will have those characteristics. So if they're very negative and they're not growth tracked, mind constantly pouring into you, that's pulling you backwards, if you want to acknowledge it or not. It's like the laws Brittany Howard talks about, like gravity's a law if you want to acknowledge it or not. So this is kind of the law of the inner circle, is one of, if I remember right, it's one of John Maxwell's. And it's a fact, like the people you are around and talk to the most will affect where you are 1 year and 5 years from now. So sometimes you have to upgrade your inner circle. That does not mean unfriend people and you can't be friends with people anymore. But where is the majority of your time and conversations and energy? Please check your energy. It is one thing, I've heard a lot of spouses say this, that they'll set like a 5-minute timer and they're allowed to complain and vent about something for like 5 minutes, like something that happened at work or something that happened with the kids. Literally, they'll set a kitchen timer and like go off as much as they want. And when the timer is up, that's enough. Like you need to transition to something. So I fully appreciate sometimes you got to get it out, but it is a slippery slope to going into this constant churning of just talking about negative energy, talking about this that happened, that happened. It may all be accurate. It all happened. So what? Like, where are we spending our energy? You have a set amount of energy each day and it needs to be spent towards growth. Action. You need to ask yourself every single day, what did I do to grow myself today? You should have an answer for that every single day. It might mean I listened to 3 minutes of a podcast. All right, that's fine. You listen to 3 minutes of a podcast every single day, it's going to add up. Again, back to Atomic Habits. Later, I will do it later. I will get to it later, or soon is another, I feel like, synonym for later, is a dream killer. That's what John Maxwell calls it, a dream killer. So you need to act now. If it's something small, that's fine. A lot of times I find myself putting things off because I don't want to do it unless I'm going to do all of it, and like sit down and do something for 2 hours, or I'd rather not do it. It's like I don't want to even start to clean the house if I can't clean the whole house. That's unrealistic now with the kids and the schedule. Like my house would never get cleaned. You got to be okay with small baby steps and knowing that they'll add up. So familiar is easy. Uncertainty, uncomfortableness is hard. So familiarity, easy, will result in an ordinary life. You're doing what ordinary people do, which is 95% of people. They stay in the familiar, they stay in the comfortable. 5% of people are willing to get into the uncharted, unfamiliar, unknown, and they live extraordinary lives. So you're at a fork and you are making a choice if you realize it or not. So if you're not pursuing growth, then you're opting into ordinary and the 95%. And guys, that's way more comfy, I'll tell you right now. But we can tell you it's not going to be an extraordinary life with massive, huge goals. So just be honest with yourself with the choices you're making and the actions you're taking. And that was it. We crammed it all in time. Hopefully, just quick recap. Hopefully you should leave here knowing why growth is important. What is growth? What does that mean? The untapped potential, unfulfilled potential for you. What are characteristics of what it doesn't look like, common excuses and pitfalls and misconceptions, and then what it's looking like. Reading books constantly, podcast training, engaged in coaching, coming ready with questions. You should have questions. Coaching is an active situation. It is not a passive. It is not a thing you sit there and like listen to a podcast. That's kind of passive. And actually you should be taking notes because that then makes it active and you're more likely to remember it. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. And I think Chris Rosenkrantz is doing the big call. So Natalie, if you don't have anything else, we will hop over there. All right, guys. Bye.